Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the all-new radio and television business report InFOCUS Video Podcast. My name is Adam R. Jacobson. I'm the editor-in-chief here at Broadcast Media's Balanced Voice for business, regulatory, and financial news every business day. You can find us online at RBR.com. The InFOCUS Video Podcast is presented by .fm. Streaming, social, podcast, or broadcast to get a .fm domain name by heading over to get.fm today. And if you'd like to be a sponsor of this all-new video podcast, feel free to contact me at adam@rbr.com, and I'll personally connect you with one of our relationship-building specialists here at Streamline Publishing. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today. It is Michael J. Hayes. He is the president of Hearst Television and earned the role in February of 2023 with the promotion of Jordan Wertlieb to executive vice president and chief operating officer for its parent company, Hearst. Hayes previously served as the chief operating officer of Hearst Television and was named an executive vice president and group head of Hearst Television in 2017. He's been in corporate leadership with Hearst Television since 2013. He's been a general manager and president of WBBH-TV in Pittsburgh, and from 2003 to 2011, he ran Hearst's WYFF-TV in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina, a place that is still in our hearts and minds after all of that flooding. So without further ado, I want to welcome you, Michael, to our podcast. It is wonderful to be here with you today.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and have a discussion. And thank you for all the work that you do covering our industry and giving, as you said, a balanced voice to all the issues at play today. There's certainly a lot of content for y'all.
Well, it's been about 2 years since you've taken the reins of Hearst Television, and in that 2 years, there's a lot that's been going on in Washington, on Wall Street, and within your own company. You've integrated a new property into the family with WBBH-TV, a station that I grew up with as Channel 20. It is in Fort Myers, Naples, Marco Island, Port Charlotte, one of the fastest growing areas of the United States. And it's something that is, in addition to a current mix of markets in Florida where we see your channels regularly, from West 2 in Orlando to our home market here in West Palm. I'm wondering what you can say about local broadcast TV today, why it remains so important to consumers in an age where digital and social media may get outsized attention, and why you decided to invest in a TV station when you don't see a lot of companies investing in new television properties.
Well, there's really, I think, too. I'll speak first to the mission of broadcasting itself. I think your analysis and how broadcasting is impacted by technology is right on, and it's a different business today than when I got in it, than the 50s when there were 3 channels. But I think that the really important part to always remember that local broadcasting, when it's done correctly, starts with the community first, right? It starts with who you're serving, whether those be viewers, advertisers, how you're bringing them together, and the role that you play inside that community. I think that, frankly, is the secret sauce of the American system. It starts with local and goes back, rather than starting with national and going down. And I'm a fervent and ardent believer in that. The second piece to that is our parent company, Hearst. I will tell you that consumer media, while we're a diversified company, consumer media is always at the heart of who we are and what we do. It's a mission of service from our founder on to our senior management today, and obviously with Jordan now in the chief operating officer's role, and our chief executive, Steve Swartz, who ran our newspaper division and worked at the Wall Street Journal. As well, we're driven by a consumer media service-oriented mindset, and so acquisitions like that are easy to do.
Now, Hearst has demonstrated a particularly strong commitment to local news and programming that makes its stations unique destinations in a wide variety of markets. I had already talked about 3 in South Florida. I know Savannah, Georgia. I know a lot of other markets, including Cincinnati. What do you believe has allowed this to transpire without undue pressure on expenses versus revenue and the challenges faced by, quite frankly, many of your peers today?
Well, part of that is what I just spoke about, right? Which is it's in our DNA as a company. It's how the company started, and while we're in the ratings business with Fitch Ratings and the health business with Hearst Health and a number of other businesses, consumer media is still at the core of who we are and what we do. And so for us to take that mission seriously, we compete hard in the markets that we're in, and we want to be do as well as we can, and be as successful as we can in those markets. We have a comment here at Hearst Television, which is we keep score. It's about competing and it's about winning. But beyond that, I think it goes to an industry perspective, which is I believe local broadcasting is about serving the community. It's what I said earlier. It's a local to national mindset. So we're honored to be in that battle and in that mission with our peer organizations across the company, across the country, and doing that service work day in and day out in local communities everywhere. It's interesting. You mentioned Florida, Adam.
Yes.
You mentioned three of our markets. What's interesting about that, and I think speaks to local broadcasting, we also own an independent station in Tampa, right? So we don't do news on that station.
Mm-hmm.
To your point about local news. But in times of severe weather or community need, we partner with the Tegna station in Tampa and put news on through our local station to make sure that we're reaching all the viewers that we can reach. So again, there's a fight mindset, but there's also a do what's right mindset in the industry.
So it's interesting that you bring that station up. It's branded as More TV, MOR.
Mm-hmm.
I did get to watch it in Sebring when I was out there because it's one of those far-flung areas of the Tampa DMA. And
Yep.
I believe you're referring to WFLA-TV?
Yep. No, FLA is Nexstar. The TSP.
WTSP is Tegna. That's
Yep.
Channel 10. Okay. My apologies there.
Yep.
But
Okay.
my question to you is, with the More TV brand in an age where you have fast channels, you have a lot of digital multicasts, you have so many ways to see a lot of the content that is on this station. What is the true value that your company and your operation sees in continuing to offer that as a viewing option in the Tampa Bay marketplace?
Well, you mentioned fast channels and the changing of the business itself, and we feel like there's kind of a renewed interest or renewed possibility for those kinds of stations in today's marketplace, where local is so important, and the opportunity to drive content that maybe not is not network originated comes from. There are so many great examples of what we would call professional sports properties that don't have major network clearances or are augmenting major network clearances, going back to the local distribution mechanism. And in a market like Tampa, we can certainly do that. In a market like Sacramento, we could certainly do that. And we'd like to look for those opportunities. But Tampa, in and of itself, our ability to produce creative programming without the confines of a network affiliation, or responsibilities, I should say, for the network affiliation, leaves a real creative path forward.
You mentioned Sacramento. KCRA Channel 3 is a monster TV station. I think I watched it in Eureka with the aerial antenna up on a mountain at one point in the recent past. But that is also a market where you have two TV stations. Mm-hmm. So in those marketplaces where you do have the two TV stations, how are you using that secondary station in terms of getting unique and independent programming, if you will, aside from the network fare that you can see on Channel 3? And why is that dynamic continue to be important for Hearst?
Yeah, I think that's really a way forward as the industry continues to evolve. And certainly, there's ownership discussions to be had with the new administration, but allowing dual network ownership in markets, I think, or duopoly ownership to a more relaxed degree, I think is very very good for the community and very good for the individual operators. I would tell you our station in Sacramento is a beloved station we were doing Division II football on that. I think it's UC Davis that we were covering some of those games in addition to the CW affiliation that we have. And then also augmenting our local news offerings on KCRA, on KQCA or My 58, in times that we're not able to do that on KCRA. And as you mentioned, Adam, KCRA may be one of the handful of the strongest local news brands in the country, where the news comes first has resonated in that market for years. And any ability that we have to be able to serve viewers conveniently where they are when they're there, I think we want to do that. And that's what we use that station for.
And if you can correct my fuzzy memory, I believe Ariel Roblin is the person in charge there.
Ariel Roblin, not to correct you, but she's a good friend of mine.
My fuzzy memory.
for many years, and I want to make sure that she gets due credit where she deserves it. She's a force to be reckoned with in local broadcasting, and a real leader that we're proud of the work she does out there every day.
Before we take a quick commercial break, I just want to ask about those fast channels and the streaming of local content, because we know it's growing and consumers are gravitating toward digital media. Advertisers are gravitating toward digital media. So how is Hearst capitalizing on this without, quite frankly, cannibalizing its linear offerings? And what can you say about those who believe that, well, there's no cannibalization because traditional media is driven by older audiences that simply want their Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, and then whatever primetime procedural drama before they go to bed?
Yeah, and we're happy to serve those, certainly, to that audience. But we also recognize a changing landscape, right? It's every platform at any time. And that's what we embrace. Frank Biancuso, my old running mate here at Hearst Television Corporate, is the president of Hearst Media Production Group, and we have 3 fast channels running. Have had them running for about 5 years with our E&I programming, and they've been very successful for us. In addition, here at Hearst Television, a few years ago, we launched Very Local, our local streaming offering, and have done very well with that in creating content and distributing that in new and traditional and in non-traditional ways. And so all of those opportunities, I think, play to the strength of what local is, which is an ability to deliver pertinent content to the right audience at the right time in the manner which they deserve, which they want to view it.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break right now. This is Michael J. Hayes, the president of Hearst Television. My name is Adam R. Jacobson, and we'll be right back after this.
You're launching the next big podcast, building a vibrant social community, or broadcasting your brand to the world. .fm is your signal to stand out. Don't just stream. Streamline your success with .fm. Claim yours today at www.get.fm.
And we thank .fm for their sponsorship of the InFOCUS Video Podcast. Hi, welcome back. I'm Adam R. Jacobson. As you can see, I'm the editor-in-chief of the Radio and Television Business Report. You can find us online anytime at RBR.com. And bringing back to the studio here virtually in Boca Raton, Florida from New York, this is Michael J. Hayes, president of Hearst Television. Michael, as we've recently discussed in our winter 2025 quarterly magazine, attracting advertising clients to newscasts has become a challenge for many in recent years. And the CMO may not think a newscast is brand safe. I personally think that's preposterous, but is this a topic of discussion you believe is perhaps among the most prescient for this industry?
Well, I agree with you. I certainly think it's a topic that deserves attention, but I would also tell you, I think we have to make sure that we're putting the right filter on some of the noise around this topic. I would tell you that, the greatest one-day sale in the free world happens once every 4 years, and that's the election of the U.S. president. And in the general election this year, I'm proud because, one area of advertising skyrocketed by every report you read, which is the streaming and connected television. The other one that grew, broadcast television. That's the only other one that grew. And so those dollars are going into local news. And I would tell you that I believe it goes hand in hand with what I've been talking about in the front part of our discussion today, which is service and making sure the community understands who you are and where you are and how participatory you are as an entity. Our ability to deliver local news and give context to the community of what's happening every day is central to what we do. And I believe a good marketer knows that, and I believe a good television station fulfills that mission.
The Journalism Competition and Preservation Act was championed by Senators Amy Klobuchar, Joe Manchin, and John Kennedy in previous congressional sessions, but it failed to win a floor vote, and subsequent passage during the last congressional session is something that the NAB and a lot of groups are looking to push ahead in this current congressional session. Do you believe that this deserves a second chance? And if so, why?
Well, it's interesting. I got to learn that, Senator Klobuchar's father was a newspaper reporter. And so she has local newspaper reporter in Minneapolis. So she has a very clear understanding of the media's role and how it impacts the community. And so, I would tell you as an overarching comment, we're for anything that supports local journalism. And we believe it is important, whether or not that comes back to a floor vote or gets passed through Congress, we'll have to see. But I don't think anyone can debate the importance of the issues at hand, which is local television and local journalism is really, I think, a constitutional at the crux of our society, and anything that would support that and empower that, I think, is very important.
Network affiliations also remain very important, at least in 2025 when it comes to the broadcast television industry. But you have Tubi, you have Peacock, you have Paramount Plus. ABC is making moves with Hulu Plus Live TV and Fubo and Hulu and Disney Plus. And there's talk that all these network affiliations that we're so reliant on for retransmission, consent, and distribution will one day become a thing of the past. Is that something that is really on the minds of executives such as yourself, or is that something that's like just future thought and possibilities rather than potential realities?
Well, I'm an optimist, right? So I think it's been a system that's worked well. I think our place as the front door to America's living room has proved effective for the networks through the years, and I think it's served us well in that process. So I'm going to be an optimist and say I believe in the future of that. Are there issues that happen with some regularity now? Yes, there have been issues through the past as well. But as always, networks and affiliates have come together to try and figure out, the best way forward. I believe in that system, and I believe in the power of that relationship and the interdependence of both entities to serve the communities. So I'm bullish on the future for that.
That is awesome to hear. Before we wrap up our discussion here on the InFOCUS Video Podcast, I wanted to ask you a question that we asked Johnny Green Jr. in our inaugural episode. He is the head of CBS News and Stations properties in New York and Boston. And I think we have heard a little bit about the notion of an over-communicated world. It was a phrase that the late Nick Michaels always used. And every day I'm asked from friends and family members about news stories, quote unquote, that they'll see on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. And sometimes it's not true, or it's a random Instagram girl spouting out what she believes to be facts that aren't facts. And with so many choices today for consumers to get their news, including your peers at other TV stations in the local news space and newspapers and even radio, what makes your stations destinations that can attract consumers, quite frankly, in ways no other media option can?
So Johnny's a friend of mine, so I'm glad that he got the first crack at this pitch. My answer would be the following. Look, I think it's fair to say that there's more ways to communicate with people today than ever before. Whether it's an over-communicated world or not, it's not for me to judge, and I'm not sure I believe that or don't believe that. But if you go back in history, people have always had different sources to receive information, right? And it's always been up to the person to decide where to get context or who to trust. And I think that's what the power of our brands are, right? Our brand next to the Instagram post, is up for the viewer to choose and decide. And we have to make sure that we build the right brand to continue in the future, the same as today, that instills that trust in the community and serve it and live up to it every day, to make sure that that brand is safe and that brand is reliable and that brand will serve going forward in a way that the community can get that information like they can't get it from anywhere else.
Michael J. Hayes, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us and to be our guest on this InFOCUS podcast. I know that Hearst Television has operations in several markets, and it would probably be unfair to say that you have a favorite market. But if you were to single out any particular place where you'd rather be rather than perhaps a cold, snowy New York, is there one right now? Because, we'd love to have you down in West Palm Beach at some point.
Well, I have to go see Caroline Taplett in West Palm, and what better than doing a trip in February, right? That would be great. They're all wonderful brands and wonderful television stations. I would tell you that having worked at WLWT in Cincinnati and WYFF4 in Greenville and WTAE in Pittsburgh, those are all pieces of our family's history that I take forward. But moreover than that, Adam, I will tell you that going to each and every community and seeing how our stations are viewed within those communities gives me immense pride, and I'm happy to be a part of all of them.
And I'm happy to report that in a recent trip to Titusville, Florida, just having my breakfast, looking up at the TV screens at the Hyatt Place, there was West Channel 2, a Hearst television station. And it's a dynamic where you have a marketplace with a lot of very actively competitive local news organizations. Every one of those 4 news organizations does a yeoman's job in a highly growing area. And to see you guys doing what you're doing is tremendous. So hats off to you.
Well, thank you. I'll make sure I'm going to talk to John Soaps later today. He'll be happy to hear that I report that to him. So thank you for sharing that.
All right. Again, thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure. And we hope to see you at our Forecast 2026 conference come November. It's going to be at the Harvard Club in New York.
It's one of my favorite days of the year. I'll be there.
Okay. All right. Great to have you here.
Okay. Thanks.
And that's Michael J. Hayes from Hearst Television. With that, we want to thank you for watching this all new radio and television business. The Radio and Television Business Report InFOCUS Video Podcast. Let's do that all over again. The all new Radio and Television Business Report InFOCUS Video Podcast. That's what happens when you do live to tape. It was sponsored by .fm, streaming, social, podcast, or broadcast. Get a .fm domain name by heading over to get.fm today. The InFOCUS Video Podcast is copyright 2025 by Streamline Publishing and is produced and distributed on the StreamYard platform. From the headquarters of Streamline Publishing in Boca Raton, Florida, home of the Radio and Television Business Report and Radio Inc., I'm Adam R. Jacobson. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.